So we finally got the tires in. We did return those Mickey Thompson tires. We got a set of Class 1 Bfgoodrich KM3s from Proline. And the Class 1 tires have a limit on the outer diameter that you're allowed to run. So these are a tad bit smaller than the other tires. So I'm gonna bust those out and we'll do a comparison of both tires. Check it out right now. Here it is, Proline Bfgoodrich KM3, and this is a 1.9 tire, and then we'll put that up to the Maxxis Trepador. And the rim that we ended up going with is an Element Enduro. It's an Ocho, and it's a 1.9 beadlock plastic wheel. You can peep that tread pattern. I love the way that, you know, the Maxxis Trepador looks, because it's got these lugs up on the side. So these feel pretty good, and I can't wait to get them on the truck. So let's get these mounted up on the truck, see how it looks. Put these tires on here, man. I've been waiting, you know, just coming in here. Do you ever just come into your hobby room and just sit down and stare at the project and just kind of visualize and try to get ideas? I just found myself, like, every couple of minutes I kept coming back in here and just staring at it, staring at it, staring at it. Thinking about it, staring at it, thinking about it. Let me know in the comments if that's something you guys do too. I mean, I just like sometimes just visualizing and being stoked. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just so stoked on this project. I cannot wait to get this thing out and see if it actually works. Super stoked on this wheel and tire combo. Definitely got a little bit more of a scale look to it. And it's definitely gonna clear as far as, you know, getting up into the tire. Look at that up travel, son. Look at that. This thing. Oh man, I just got some. She got some flavor, son. She got some flavor. Look at that. I think I'm gonna call it, dude. I think we're just gonna go out and like clean up these lines on the body a little bit. But yeah, I think the wheel and tire combo nailed it. Digging on these tires, dude. And then here's fully bumped from the front view. I wanted to turn the camera back on and share that, you know, sometimes I find myself, you know, not doing the work that I'm supposed to be doing and kind of doing the work that I'm really enjoying. And for whatever reason, this roll cage has just kind of been a lot of fun to play around with here. So I think we're just going to continue with this roll cage. These cutters have come in extremely handy. Line up on that next piece. I'm just using the other piece as a template. Boom. We're just marking these tubes. And what I ended up doing to accommodate for that rear bed that goes right into this little clip is we just kind of shortcut this tube up here and then shortcut this tube and then run it on top so that that little sleeve can actually go underneath this tube right here. It might make final assembly a little difficult, but everything should still be able to fit all right. I'm just using that same hot glue gun just to tack everything in place. Also learning how to use this hot glue gun a little better too. Some of my first welds with this hot glue gun look like a 2-year-old's like a little art class, and then like my final ones are actually like getting to be pretty good. So just kind of learning as we go along, man. So I thought this would be crazy. I've been trying to fight this body for just to get a mock-up since we finished up the roll cage in here, and I had to fight it for a while, but it just kind of like plopped on, and I'm kind of like, I can't believe that I don't have to get more radical with this. But yeah, that is, I can't believe it. Check this out. It's like, did I really just finish this cage? Like, I don't even know. Let's pull it out of the cab, see what it looks like. Yeah, I can't believe it, but I think we did. Just do that dang cage. Look at this with the door. Check out how tight I got it to the door right here. It's pretty crazy. Like when the door closes, that inner door panel is just like, man. Same thing up here. Just got it so close. When the door opens, door shuts. Oh. Dang, look at that, dude. Actually, it looks like something. And there she blows, Captain. My first roll cage. I might add some posts and some beams, but I mean, this is the overall, tied it all together, so it's like a real actual roll cage. So now, legit, dude, we're just waiting on some of that plastic rod to finish this thing, and then what I'll do is I'll just go and measure all of these, cut the tubes, cut everything to match, and then just duplicate this. So I'm gonna try to use epoxy, probably super glue to tack it, and then come back in with epoxy and try to simulate some welds and then do a paint job on it. So Boom, look at that. That thing is ready to rock. We're back in the body shop and we've just been hand sanding these fenders. We started out at like 100 grit and worked our way up into like a 400 grit sandpaper. And just been trying to hit all of these so that we're getting everything ready for paint. Here's a shot of the cab. We've just been hand sanding everything, just kind of going up in here and just cleaning everything up. Everything up to this point was just done with a Dremel tool. So I didn't want this thing to look like a brand new cherry truck. So we busted out the Scotch-Brite and I just been ripping up these body panels with a piece of Scotch-Brite. Just your normal green, like Scotch-Brite. And just kind of getting on these panels and just, you know, trying to keep in one direction and just trying to rough it up the best that I can just so that it doesn't look like a gloss cherry. Plus it'll help the primer stick a little bit too. So, and I'm hoping that by scuffing up all these panels like this that it'll make the primer look a little bit kind of rough and give it a little bit of, you know, almost like it's weathered a little bit just so it's not just glass clean. And we did end up cutting the magnet out of the hood because we're gonna figure out either a body pin or I might just even epoxy it in place because this will not stay put with the amount of mashing that I'm planning to put this thing through. So we're gonna send it. Proline does make a Prerunner fender kit, and when these came out I picked up a couple of sets. These are designed for the 93 Ranger, but if you chop them up you can use them for a bunch of different projects. So we got a couple different sets of these and we're gonna bust out a fresh set, see if we can get these cuts to match. And what we're doing right now is just getting some finalized cuts around the taillight and then figuring out how much we got to get the bend to actually get our hardware, because we are going to hard mount these in multiple locations. I thought this was kind of cool reference. So this is that 3D printed fender buck that I was making that I plan on actually using my own Lexan to form over it. And if we take this Prerunner fender and go straight over the top, you could see how dang close I was on just the sizing alone. I thought that was kind of cool, just how close I got. You know, designing a 3D fender, how much it just like pops right on. The curvature too. And this is just me basically eyeballing it, you know what I mean? But that would be almost perfect. Would have been perfect for the setup that I was running on the Bronco, so. You know, we might revisit this, some 3D printed fender bucks and make our own, so. And this stuff is gnarly compared to normal 110 scale body, so. Let's get this chopped up and then we'll have some big blanks that we can work with, try to figure out our final cuts. Alright, now that we got these bed sides roughly cut, if we leave this intact on the back, it doesn't allow the wheel well to line up. So we're gonna cut it right here on the back, get it moved forward. And right now I'm just kind of lining up the existing cut for the wheel well right there and then kind of just eyeballing some rough cuts. Right there, go straight across, and then same thing, we'll chop right here, come a little bit. And we're just using more of these sticky dots so I can locate this rear bedside so that I can get the top cut more accurate. And this is that line that I was talking about. I want to make sure that this is going to be a straight line so that when everything bolts up, it'll be nice and tight. In fact, I am going to use a little piece of masking tape just to make sure that I get a straight cut on this one. I'm just going to freehand it with a razor. Always want to change out to a fresh razor. Alright, bed sides are good to go. I just wanted to give you guys a comparison on the stock one versus this one because I haven't really done any of the big cuts yet. So you can see how much we're gonna have to hog out on this side. This is the only flat area right here. And it just shows you how much customization it took to actually get these Proline fenders to work. So I just indexed the fender in the back using some of these sticky tabs up front and in the back, and then we're just gonna get a piece of tape and line it up right here so that we know where to make our cuts. And here's a little progress update. We did bust out a fresh set of these Proline fenders and got them mocked up last night, and the only cuts that I have to do is gonna be the wheel well arch. Another thing that would have made it easier too with a 110 short course body is that you can cut the whole front clip off, mount that to the hood, and it would be like almost like a one-piece hood clip that had over fenders on both sides. And I think the next step is going to be figuring out some of the hardware locations, getting that drilled and then tapped, mounting the hardware and doing kind of the final mock-up. And we are waiting on that palm dowel still. So as soon as I started work on this cage and realized I didn't have enough dowel to actually finish it, we placed an order in. It was kind of back ordered, but it did ship. So we might be another couple days out before we get that palm rod in, but this might be the last step that goes in before we could do some of that final interior assembly. So let's get these bed sides mounted up, get them chapped up for some hardware, and then we'll see how we're looking. And right now I'm just using a Sharpie, just kind of eyeballing some mounts, and I don't want to get too close to the bed sides so that the hardware won't put too much stress if you actually do bow out and wrap this thing up. So I think we're gonna do 3 pieces of hardware like so, something like that. and then a couple pieces of hardware down the side and a couple pieces of hardware right there. Let's rock and roll. This is going to be a little setback. We went out to drill the bed sides, you know, drilling up the body to mount the bed sides right here. And as we're drilling up those bed sides, the epoxy broke right at where we made this epoxy line. So good thing I didn't actually use that same epoxy because it was just a Loctite 2-part 5-minute set. So good thing I didn't epoxy these in. They're just still friction fitted in. So, and then, you know, as further inspection, I started looking at this other door and the exact same thing. So I don't know if it was during dremeling, cutting, drilling or what, but I'm gonna have to bust out the shoe goo and see if we can actually get these to hold. So it's gonna be a little setback trying to get these glued back in and reset, but man, that's crazy. That just popped right out of there. Well, we're not gonna use that epoxy anymore and we're gonna switch over to shoe goo. So, well, let's see what these bed sides look up once we start getting some hardware through them. Just got one side done of that bed side, and with the hardware on there, snapped up pretty tight up onto the body. And we got 3 mounting hardware up top, and then 2 in the back. Same thing in the rear, sitting pretty. So we got the 3 up top, 3 up on the side, makes that bed side suck right up into it, and our fender line stays with the actual stock body lines too, so it turned out pretty dang good. So I'm sitting here, we're definitely gonna have to shoe goo these back in. So I'm sitting here trying to think, do I pry all this off and just start fresh? And then on this side, same thing. You know, it's, if we flex the body, you can see it. So I'll flex the body, you see it right here, coming away from the body. So do I just leave this intact with what it is and try to shoe goo everything in place and reinforce this? Or do I pry it all out? Same thing, this has a bunch of the epoxy. See this entire layer of epoxy just completely came off clean. So maybe I should try to get this off and just redo this side with some good shoe goo and then reinforce it the best I can. Yeah, look at that, just peeled right off of there. So I just kind of epoxy cut right here in the center, and then this was able just to break right off. So I am gonna try to get the majority of this off and just bust out the shoe goo and get crazy. It'll probably be the last time that I use that epoxy, but we're able to get that completely clean off of there, which kind of blows my mind a little bit. Well, that kind of makes me think maybe I should just bust out this other side if it popped out so easy. And this is the stuff that we were using. So I'd have to go back into the RC 4-wheel drive manual, but I want to say that it didn't say to use shoe goo or E600 in that area. And you know, this is probably an oversight for me. This is probably a good epoxy, but for whatever reason, I've never seen epoxy snap off of plastic like that. Like usually it's a done deal. So I don't know if I'll be ever using this again until I can, you know, test it in something else and see. But from here on out, we're gonna be rocking the shoe goo. I do think that I could probably get this out of here. Yeah, look at that. It comes off so easy, it's crazy. All I had to do is just introduce a little, like underneath the surface area, and you can just see the air pop right in. You know, not that gluing these later would have fixed anything, but I definitely think that if we would have let this be as it is and not figure out that this epoxy isn't gonna work, it would have been a real pain in the butt to actually just hit like a crazy little set of some dubs and have this all crack and come out like while we're actually testing it. So it's kind of good that it happened here. Yeah, look at that, it's just wiggling out. This is so crazy to me, look. Look at this, I've never seen anything like that. Came out so clean. So let's look on the inside. It came out so clean, I cannot believe. Can't believe it. There's nothing in there. I'm gonna break this. It should come clean off the other side. Watch, like the last one. Boom. The whole piece. It's so crazy. Is that just, am I just tripping on this? Is it just me that's tripping on this, dude? Like, that's crazy. I've never seen any, dude, epoxy. Sometimes I was using a 2-part Loctite epoxy before that would like literally melt plastics. Wow, and this is flexible. That's so weird. I mean, flexible to a point, you know, but geez. What up? Let's get a little update on where we are so far. So The epoxy did fail inside these door jambs with the epoxy that we used, and for whatever reason, I don't know if it's on my bad or I didn't prep the parts, I didn't scuff it, but it failed on both sides and we cracked it out pretty clean. So we ended up shoe gooing it yesterday, and we just came back today. We did shoe goo these little reinforcement rods that are out of that palm dowel. And we got the doors all taped up so that it'll maintain the proper shape when we glued it. And I'm hoping that the shoe goo will be the ticket for the win. So it's not the cleanest job. Shoe goo is pretty hard for me to work with. I gotta figure out a different solution on how to work with it a little cleaner, but the rods are definitely glued in. What I gotta do right now is get this mocked up, get the tape off, and then get these front bed sides mounted up, and then do kind of like a final mock-up of all the components and see if everything fits. Man, that would have been stupid if we would have taken this thing out and hit like one whoop or like one little jump and the doors just straight both snapped out with all the paint. So what I was doing was I was getting kind of radical with flexing and bending, and I could hear it just snap up inside. So I've never seen epoxy do that before. You know, there was a bottle of epoxy, I think it was a Loctite brand, that I left sitting in a drawer and the cap came off. Somehow, you know, got inactive with the other one. And it glued everything so hard that I had to cut like a section of the wood out just to get it out, so. And the doors still work. All we gotta do is get these mounted up and then get this final cut to match the curvature of the inside fender. And then we'll see how it looks. And I set drill these with just a drill bit a little bit smaller than the actual thread, so there's still a little left to bite. And I'd say that the fenders was probably one of the more challenging parts of this build, was just straight up trying to freestyle all these cuts and figure out how it would actually like work and not just shred itself when you use it, but to make it actually look cool. And I think that we did a pretty darn good job getting this to actually suck up and kind of look the part and still kind of like still mildly flow with the stock body. Came out pretty dope, dude. Once we get this cut done, I think we're pretty much ready to take these off and get everything prepped for paint. Some of you guys maybe been peeping this Bronco back here, but we did get that out for paint and primer last night, and that is getting ready. The only issue is that we got some chrome pieces that were broken just sitting in the box, so I don't know if it was something from transport or what, but so yeah, stay tuned guys. For those of you who want to see this Bronco, that's going to be another Prerunner build. So, well, stupid me, these over fenders come over just a little bit with hardware in them, so you kind of have to do a snake-a-ronies with the hood to get it to fit, but she fits. I think these came out great. I think we could probably do a little better job cutting them, but the overall, you know, just the way that we chopped and made it actually fit up in there, I think it's gonna look great once we get it painted. Let's get the grill mounted up and do a final mock-up and see where we're at. And I just wanted to show for comparison where this interior sits on the chassis, because you don't really get a chance to see the interior without the body put on, so that was kind of a cool little shot right here. This is pretty exciting. This is gonna be the first time that I've actually seen this thing getting all of its components put together with the proper wheel package, with the proper fenders. That was pretty cool. We actually made the functional cage, so this cage comes all the way down, boom, comes all the way back around and ties back into the back, ties back into here. So we still haven't figured out a way to actually brace the bed. I'm gonna be straight up with you guys. I mean, the idea is we're just gonna create a spacer. I'm gonna do a bed mount there and then a bed mount here. But we can't use this 3D printed mount because it actually gets in the way of the sway bar. So something I'm just gonna have to figure out when it comes time. So, and let's get this bed mounted up and see how it looks. And I guess we got enough progress to give you guys another update. So we got those rims and tires from Proline. These are the Class 1 KM3, and they're gonna work out perfectly for all the clearance issues we were having earlier. We got the fenders mounted up, both front and rear with hardware. And these fenders came out a lot better than I thought they would. After we got all the hardware on, they bolted up and they sucked up to the fenders, and it's pretty cool. The stock body line actually flows within to these Proline Prerunner fenders. We got the cage fully completed in the mock-up condition, so the cage comes down, it's functional, runs all the way to the back, comes up, tied in all the areas. So we're still waiting on the plastic dowel to come in so that we can actually complete that before we get this thing primed and painted. Once we got all this hardware in, it sucked everything up really nice, and under full bump everything just, you know, works perfectly. So no clearance issues, no rubbing. We did get the bed mounted directly to the frame through that mount that actually came with that body mount kit, and we just reused that 3D printed mount, chopped up on the side so it would clear for the sway bar, and then tapped into the frame rail and added an extra hole with some hardware, and then just ran the stock 2 screws through the top of the bed. And then the spare tires just mounted directly through the bed, through the bottom, through a screw, and then just a butterfly. The original plan was to run this kit bash KC light bar that I built up And for whatever reason, it just doesn't work for the scale and for the size of the vehicle. So we kind of had to put that on the side and figure out some different lighting options. I do have a full LED kit that's gonna go up in the front with all the lenses, but I'm just curious on how much I'm gonna shred out of there once I actually run the wires, because this thing, it's pretty big tires for this body. Pretty stoked to get this thing out and do some testing. So in the next part, we're gonna be playing around with these RC four-wheel drive springs and choosing our oils and getting our spring rate squared away. So hit that like and subscribe, do it for Dale. Catch you boys later, peace.